Hello, BookTube.
Hello, BookTube.
Welcome to Dueling Top 10. This is the second episode,
Second episode.
but a similar theme.
If your emails are any indication, this won't be the last one. You seem fond of this.
There will only be one host going forward, but that's, thank you for those emails. Ooh, that was rough.
For those of you who are joining us without having seen the first one, we're two friends, we're two avid readers, and we are picking a topic and then picking a top 10 list without consulting each other.
Right.
So we're learning the first time is when you are. So you can make your bets.
So this was inspired by a BookTube channel. He may call himself a YouTube channel. I've never asked. And that's Sean D. And those were excellent videos. Somebody alerted you to them.
Somebody alerted me to them. I don't remember who. So that person can't be important.
Yep. That's how you get your subscription count down. Yeah. And we went over and watched them. We're inspired. Loved the lists he did on these. I've been watching some of his other videos and really enjoying them.
His whole back catalog.
Yeah. Excellent.
I think the book list will be the only thing we explicitly steal.
Oh, no, we'll get him for everything.
We'll get him for everything. We'll pillage his whole channel.
So we each go. Now we're at my house up in Vermont, and Steve's library is down at Hyde Cottage. So what we do is I go out in the middle of the freezing weather and go out on one of my rooms out the porch, and I pick out print volumes. Steve leisurely sits in the heat in here and goes to his handy iPad.
Occasionally, I lift one hand over my shoulder and snap my fingers for some hot food.
Nothing happens, but he does do that. So I'm going to start off, if I could.
It's your channel.
Yeah, you're right. Remember that. Good luck with that, right? So I didn't really do these in really any order.
Should we set up for newcomers? Last list was nautical fiction.
Right. This one's nautical nonfiction.
Now we're doing nautical nonfiction.
Right. And I could have picked 100 other books, and I'm sure that Sean D could have, and I'm sure you could have. But
and the reason why is not just because we're avid readers; it's because Mark and I have spent a huge amount of time on the water, on Earth's oceans in various capacities in various places. So.
When I went to pick up the books at first, and I have plenty going on, and Sean D. Standfast is probably going to be sitting there going, "That's why you're not doing your job." I'm supposed to be reading Asimov. And what I do, I go to the shelves to pick up the first of the books for this, and it's Eric Newby's The Grain Race, which is a legendary book. And you can tell, I can never do this. I'm almost done with it. Picked it up, yesterday, the day before?
Yeah, you mentioned it snagged you.
It snagged me. I've read it before, and I couldn't put it down. So I didn't even go look at the other books. I started reading again. This is, Eric Newby was a great travel writer. This is a tale of him as a very young man. He had been stuck in an advertising agency as a very, very young man. I'm surprised how young it was. And just was not the life for him. He wasn't built for it. He had a friend who convinced him, an older guy, that the age of the great sailing ships was about to be over, and that man was certainly correct.
Yeah, you could see it coming.
And they, last of the big sailing ships, used to do what they called the grain. They also did like guano and nitrate runs, but they did these grain runs to Australia from Europe. And it was called the Grain Race because time was money. And it was really the end of these great steel-hulled, in this case, a four-masted bark.
Just clouds of canvas.
Yeah, just unbelievable. And this one's a nice addition of Folio Society in this case, but I've seen many others with these. I'm going to have to figure this out. With these wonderful photos.
You're pulling a criminale here by waving the book around like a semaphore. Show them the book, the outside of the book.
Yeah, the outside of the book. There's Folio Society. Incredible. This book is constantly being reprinted. It's always in print.
Is it one of their popular titles?
I don't know if it is for Folio. I'm sure it was. That's the route for those of you who want to see it. So they would do that route. They would go to Australia. Usually they would leave from Ireland. But these vessels were bought up. I can't remember if the guy was a Dutch or I can't remember.
I would assume.
And I just read it and I can't remember. But his name was Erickson. He was one of the last great owners of these merchant sailing vessels. And they would race back. And, it's quite a haul. And so that was the fun of it. But it's a young man really learning how to work. It's very dangerous work. I mean, 98 feet above the deck, you fall. It doesn't matter if you hit the water or the deck. Maybe to clean up it does, but you're done either way, right? And then try doing that in a storm with wet canvas. I mean, the physical
or ice-covered canvas.
Yeah.
You're clambering up that like a squirrel.
And it's doing this. So if you ever been on the mast of a ship, if you're down below, you move that much, right? You're up here, you move that much, right? So try doing that.
First time you do that. The first time your vessel disappears from underneath you and you are just over open water.
Yeah.
So many people that first time panic, just panic.
Yep. And people do get hurt and people do die. But it's a wonderful, wonderful book. Eric Newby is one of the great travel writers, I think, in the English language at least. And this book, The Last Grain Race, I highly, highly recommend it. So,
oh, right.
It's all yours. I'm going to cover the dead air time. So from our sponsors, we don't have any sponsors. You got it?
I don't have any books. I just have a list. All right. My number 10 is by an author you're all going to know, but you might not know this book. It's Blue Water, Green Skipper.
Oh, wonderful.
By Stuart Woods, who's a sort of an espionage thriller type writer who decided to write a book about doing a massive sailing expedition on his own as a relative neophyte, alone on a wind-driven vessel. And all the writing skill that he brings to his thrillers tend to be a cut above what you'd expect. They have ups and downs. He's written a lot of books, but you read something like Swimming to Catalina, you're really going to enjoy it. It's a thriller that you can put your mind in. He takes all of those skills and brings them to this book. And just wrote a modern day sailing classic. I think you're a fan as well, aren't you?
Right. I read the book years ago. I wish I still had a copy because they're getting hard to find. Which seems crazy with a writer of his stature. Somebody will reprint it if they haven't already. It's a single-handed transit of the Atlantic, but from the European side to the American side. Brilliantly written. I think of all his books I've read, and I have enjoyed some of his later ones, maybe not so much. But I think of what I've read, it's the best thing he ever wrote. I really do. I think it's a great book. I think you could say it's a classic of the genre.
I definitely,
yeah. So somebody will reprint it. If they're allowed to. Yeah.
But that's my number 10. He's got a pile of books here that I'm forcing myself not to look at. So, although it doesn't matter, his choices are already made.
Yeah, he's thinking, what did you pick that for? All right. So my next one, this is sort of a shout out to Scott Danielson. We were talking the other night on Voxer. And we got into a conversation where Lord Cochrane came up, who is the archetype for Horatio Hornblower, for Captain Aubrey, and for Captain James T. Kirk. And there's a reason for that. It was the life. And we had talked the other day, but we had neglected to add Marriott to our list of fiction, nautical fiction folk, and he was wonderful.
Terrible.
But he knew Cochrane. So it was before Hornblower. And I mean, Cochrane has really become sort of a type. And I wanted to show a few things here, even though it's one choice, and I'll pick one of the three. The first one here is a folio society.
Oh, my God.
And it's a typical folio society where they just do a beautiful job. If you can find this book, I have no idea. They may have it still.
What's the book?
This I'm going to show you here. I want to get to the page. This is the Memoirs of a Fighting Captain by Admiral Lord Cochrane, Admiral of the Red, Rear Admiral of the Fleet, with an introduction by Brian Vale. And the Folio Society put this out in 2005. Just a gorgeous volume about a guy who did everything. You can see that typical Folio Society picking the artwork.
But you really get what you pay for.
You do. You do. And here he is in a photograph where he was less than, he had, like all of us, aged a bit, but the maps.
Supposed to mean? What is he saying? I had no idea Cochrane lived into the age of photographs.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I didn't, you didn't know that?
No,
neither did I, so it doesn't matter. But I wanted to show a couple more. So this is one that Steve does know. This is these Heart of Oak Sea Classics, which is a wonderful series. Grab anything you see in
Oh
them.
yeah, they don't make them anymore, but they're all great.
And this is Lord Cochrane, Seaman Radical Liberator, A Life of Lord Thomas Lord Cochrane, 10th Earl of Dundonald, 1775 to 1860. So this is a wonderful one for a biography as opposed to a memoir. And then we will go to one I really enjoyed, and they say it right on the cover here. This is Cochrane, The Life and Exploits of a Fighting Captain by Robert Harvey, the model for best-selling novelist Patrick O'Brien's Jack Aubrey. But what you could say that for a lot of these characters are based on Cochrane. It's a lovely cover. So any of these, well, let me show you this. This is sort of nice.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Nope.
I remember selling that at the bookstore.
Yeah. This is a nice copy. You probably picked this up secondhand, I would think. Pretty simply.
And the thing about the Cochrane template wasn't just the daring, and it wasn't just the skillful seamanship. It was also the relationship with the crew, which is totally different than, for instance, Captain Cook or Captain Bligh.
Yeah.
The Cochrane template, the Kirk, the Aubrey template is that the captain loves his crew and they love him.
Yeah.
So he's not a tyrant with the whip.
No. And you know, prize money mattered back then. Luck. If you were thought of as a lucky captain, it made a difference. Now, obviously, you would make your own luck to a degree, but only to a degree. The sea, sailing ships.
Wow, so you had an array of Cochrane books.
I did that for Scott Danielson because he wanted to see what.
What's he ever done for us?
He just did a show with us.
Oh, that's right. Oh, wow. Yes, good on you, Scott. Let's just hurry on, shall we?
I'm sending him to your house next,
Yes.
and that means all of you.
One of you draws the short straw. As I pack up, have Bean will travel. For my number 9, I'm going to pick Kon-Tiki by Tor Heyerdahl, which is another single man or very limited crew crossing. Only this time it's not a boat; it's a raft. He crosses the Pacific, a great swacking cross of the Pacific in a raft. On a raft, in order to see how Aboriginal peoples did it, how probable it was. With you've got, storms and sharks. One indelible scene where they all look down into the water and wonder if it's a school of fish, but it's the spots on the back of a whale shark that is basking directly underneath them, and on and on. I mean, Kon-Tiki's been in print. When did it come out? I don't even know. More than a century ago.
Oh yeah,
It's
was.
been in print
Oh no,
forever.
maybe not more.
Not more than a century
Maybe
ago.
the 40s,
But
the 50s. I don't know.
It will stay in print. It is, I think, a seminal work of nautical nonfiction.
The first
from a lunatic.
great work of experimental archaeology.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, the experimental archaeology, meaning where they
So
try
you
to
would
recreate.
try. So like
So
now
like-
you see
like
people try to
Jason's
build
Tim
a
Severin.
pyramid. Yeah, you try to build a pyramid.
Right.
Or Tim Severin. There's another great book I don't have on my list, and that's the Brendan Voyage, where you make a leather boat like they did in Ireland, and you cross the North Atlantic, and it worked.
Neither one of us put Tim Severin on our list because we really don't like Jason Harrigan.
Who?
I know.
That
I
guy.
try to block him out too. Well, that's my pick. So
That's a great one.
Where are we up to here? What's your number 7? Or no, number 8.
You're gonna cut me down, aren't you?
Get
You
the
add
numbers
yours,
on
and
again.
you
What's your number 1? Well, I go on, I'll have 9 more.
Did you have that funny taste in your food today? Almonds. It's called
They
almonds.
heavily anesthetize themselves by this point.
So this one is by David Cordingly. A lot of you will know him as a writer. He's written a lot about pirates.
Oh, wow.
But this is the Billy Ruffian, the Bellefirin and the Downfall of Napoleon, the biography of Ship of the Line, 1782 to 1836. And this
Who
was.
is this? Is this Bloomsbury?
This is. What is this? Oh, I love the end papers. Yeah, Bloomsbury. But look at the end papers here. I got to pop the. This, I learned a lot. I just enjoyed it. I like the whole idea of doing a biography of a ship. Steve, a couple years ago, you gave me a copy of a biography of another ship that was in the news, and that was the Endeavor. But this is a different ship, obviously. Predates that by quite a bit. And the Endeavor's in the news because the Aussies think they found it in Newport Harbor in Rhode Island, and the American team saying not so fast. So we'll see how that works out.
I almost included a ship biography of my own, the USS Constitution, Old Ironsides.
Yeah.
A most fortunate ship. But then I thought, why sing the praises of Boston when I have no intention of returning? I see you agree. I see that by that dead expression on your face that you agree.
We've been here for 7 months, right?
It's been
Is
a
that what
long
it is?
time.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. Well, my next one.
Oh, moving right along. No.
My number 8 is the only. This is the nonfiction list, and there's a vast spectrum of nonfiction that you could use. And my number 8 is the only nonfiction work of reference at all. Right? I mean, there are some classic piloting guides, for instance, that you could use. But I chose the Oxford Companion to Ships in the Sea by Peter Kemp. Because of all the nautical reference works that came to mind, it's the only one I know of that's actually a reading experience as well. You don't need to just look up, Spotted Dick. Whatever. You don't need to look up one thing. You can just enjoy.
You make a call.
You make a call. So my number 8. I don't know if the Oxford Companion is still in print. You more than likely would be familiar with the trade paperback, which was Deep Blue. I found the hardcover just recently. I'm assuming you have it. All right, this is the trade paperback. All right, so it's the only reference work on my list, and it's on your list as well. I see it probably for the same reason.
What can I say that hasn't been said before?
You're not telling me this is your next one?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So
Calls for a wee sip of wine.
Yeah. Just give you an idea.
Oh, fantastic!
It's a
So you agree then?
I
It's a
absolutely
reading
agree.
experience,
I
not just a
don't
reference
think we
work.
would be unique in this. It's a wonderful, wonderful volume, like these Oxford reference works often are. I mean, I can just sit down for a while and just
There's a picture of
page
me.
through it.
Close up on me. Didn't I cut a figure? Oh my!
Except for this guy doesn't talk back anymore. Just saying.
They're trying to achieve that status here.
We will succeed.
Well, you all right? We're blessed we did the same one. Let's just move on. We'll move on to my next one, which I don't think will be on Mark's list. Mine is Spring Tides by Samuel Eliot Morison. Slim volume, a personal volume, very personal. Just a series of reflections and vignettes of maritime life. Morrison has come up often in our visit here, where all the things that he's done, all the things that he's written. And this is a tiny little thing. It's not one of his monumental books, but I love it for all that, because the grand old man, the honorary admiral, the sheet full of medals and citations and whatnot, that person is not present in this book. And that's amazing, because it's that person who wrote the book. He just went into his oldest and most cherished memories. No idea how available Spring Tides is, but I loved it. And I had to have Samuel Eliot Morison on my list.
And I didn't. And we were talking earlier about him a little bit. I love that little anthology, Sailor Historian, which is good. I think his daughter had something to do with that. One of my favorites and one of the most riveting books he ever did was The Rope Makers of Plymouth.
You wouldn't think it from the title.
Anybody can write an industrial history like that. It can do it. He wrote a little book, a guidebook that's still in print to Bar Harbor, Maine, because that's where he lived, Mount Desert Island, for a while.
The point that both of us have made for years is that this guy on the surface at a yard sale with no dust jacket is going to look like the most boring thing in the world, and he could write like an angel, no matter what he writes about.
Old
It's
Bruin,
so
about Admiral Perry.
And really, in an ideal list like this, probably we would have his whole World War II set on there, right?
Yeah, I got a bunch of those there.
He wrote a gigantic.
Here, let me grab it and I'll show him what it looks like.
The operations of the U.S. Navy in World War II. He was granted access to all of these ships. He was given a rank so that he could write about all of them.
There's 15 volumes if you count the general index.
You would think, if you looked at these things, that they are the ultimate armchair historian or the ultimate insider thing, but they grab you right away.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
But so that's mine. I think you're next. What are we up to here? We're up to.
So we'll go to another, but
6.
We'll go to an Aussie, and that's Alien Villiers.
You've got to be kidding me.
And I don't have everything he's done, but I got pretty close.
I want to stress that we did not consult with each other.
So, oh no, you haven't. Well, how could you not have, right? And this is by way of Cape Horn. And this is a 1952 edition. He also wrote a book on the grain race, the one that Eric Newby was in. And he really did do these tall ships. He was sort of the pioneer of the tall ship era when you come to museum ships. Because of course he did the Mayflower too, the original, which I think just got refurbished at Mystic Seaport, right? And I think they, they just.
Can you go on board?
Yeah, I think you can now. You couldn't for a couple of years because they were redoing everything. And he's just a fascinating character. He did the list of his books. You could collect them for a while. He's worth collecting and even more worth reading. So I think it's something. Oh, they got a whole bunch of them here. He did a book on Conrad. Yeah, the Cruise of the Conrad. He was one of those guys had a passion for a way of life that was leaving the earth.
A lot of these guys knew that.
And he like Newby, but more of a Newby had a wider range of interests in that. Villiers has the advantage, another kind of advantage where he just focused on the sea. That big old National Geographic book, Men in the Sea, he edited that, and that's a wonderful. But that could easily be on this
That
list.
very nearly made my list, except I've talked so much about it. I've talked so much about it on my list.
Yeah, so he did beautiful books on maritime history in Tasmania. He did all sorts of stuff, just wonderful stuff.
My number 6 is The Sea and Ships by Alan Villiers. I want to stress we did not coordinate this right down to the number. It's the same. And this is his book on grain race, on the grain passage, which when I was thinking about this list, I was realizing how many books on this list or on a list you would make of this are about rounding Cape Horn. And it automatically made me wonder, have you ever done that?
No, I have not. Nope.
I've done it with both a motor-driven vessel and also a wind-driven vessel, and it's kind of a thing that sticks in the minds of a lot of these writers because it can be beastly. It can be absolutely beastly to do, and it's one of those things that's captured so well in Herman Melville's chapter, The Lee Shore, because when you're rounding the Horn, you know perfectly well that there's the wastelands on the ice of Antarctica on one side, and there are bitter rocks on the other side. So it's not just that the weather's awful; it's that you're in a funnel and you have to do it right. The Sea and Ships is Villiers he's not as good a writer as Samuel Eliot Morison. I'm a little bit prejudiced here, but I'm willing to say that Morison is the best writer on this list. But he's a little stiffer, and the Sea and Ships is a little more insider baseball. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of terminology, a lot of specific phrasings about how you round the Horn that he doesn't explain because he wrote his book for other mariners. But I still think you'd enjoy it if you can find it. I don't know how collectible he is.
Oh, I would think very.
Really? You think so?
Nautical people.
Probably, right.
Yeah. And plus, he knew Samuel Eliot Morison. So,
all right, we are up to 5.
Okay, and I couldn't miss this guy, and I had to pick a representative book, and hopefully you'll be able to see it because and this is Howard Chappell, probably one of the greatest historians of the craft, the vessels themselves, American historic vessels. I have books up by him on everything from native canoes to the greatest clipper ships to everything. So I picked this one as sort of a standard, and see if we can do this. This is boat building. Just an unbelievable.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Unbelievable writer. If you want to know anything about, especially American ships, but anything about boat building, in this case with wood.
How old is this thing?
I don't know. Probably the 50s or 60s.
Dust Jacket says W.W. Norton.
Yeah, I think all his books were Norton, or at least they got the right to it. So this is like, this is the first, 1941.
Wow.
So, just probably the best at his craft that there's ever been and this sort of thing. So, I would say Howard Chappell and anything about it. He has a history of the American Sailing Navy where you go through and it's the construction.
Well,
of
this
ships.
thing's about boat building, a wooden boat.
Yeah.
A dream of yours.
Yeah.
Build a wooden boat.
Yep.
You had a funny routine, a funny bit the other night where you said the older he gets, the smaller the dreamed boat gets.
Yeah, it started off as a Kiwi too.
I think, and then in a few years, it's just going to be a couple of wooden shoes.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll keep out the rain. Maybe
it might be an armchair in a movie. I don't know.
Well, my next one I don't think will be on your list, and it's just a favorite of mine. That's why
I hope I can hold it up the minute he does it.
It's Yankee Sails the Nile, and it's by Irving and Electa Johnson, who are a couple who outfitted a sailing vessel and went up the Nile, which is a favorite thing of a lot of nautical nonfiction. People will traverse the Nile in order to write about it because it lends itself. It contains the narrative well. And these two do that. They've written a couple of other books, but this one's my favorite of theirs. It's just full of anecdotes, full of their life on board. Just a classic, for me, a classic small scale nautical memoir. So they're not rounding the horn in fourth 10 gales. They're not bringing the last shipment of anything anywhere. They're not doing the Merman's run. They're just enjoying themselves, punting on the Nile. So I included that, even though I'm sure it's out of print and will never come in print again.
I have their Yankee Sails the World.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I had.
And who's the first American to do that? The Nile like that?
I believe
A man who should be in the Library of America.
Was it me?
No, a little before you in the 1800s.
Oh.
It would be John Lloyd Stevens.
Oh, did he write enough to be in the Library of America? He did, didn't
Oh,
he?
yeah, he wrote a ton of good. He wrote our first
right.
great travel books. I don't know why
Completely not there.
everybody should be reading him. Yep, he's just fantastic. All right, my turn.
That's my number 5. So you're up to 4.
Usually that means that he has 8 others.
I know. I got the counting wrong last time, so I don't know why I'm counting this.
This is a classic case of where I picked one book. I picked one boat that I didn't build. Right.
If we were real booktubers, we'd have done this on a boat on the water.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah,
so this is Tristan Jones.
Out of the year, it's 50 below zero in Vermont.
I love it when it's like that. Tristan Jones, Heart of Oak. I think everything Tristan Jones ever did. My father, when I was in the Coast Guard for Christmas, gave me, and that would have been in 1980, I think. He gave me, I might have the year wrong, a copy of Saga of a Wayward Sailor, which was a legendary, an incredible voyage, and all those.
I'm ashamed to say now I don't have any Tristan Jones on my list.
This is a wonderful book. Tristan Jones was a bit of he was good at sea stories, in the sense that sailors mean that. He may have embellished a bit because he was a Welsh storyteller. Here he is. He would have been a marvelous guy to know. I've met many people who met him because he was very big on writing tours, because he would use those writing tours to fund his next operation. He grew up working on ships very young. He came from a working class background, and for his family, I guess that meant the sea. And then he was in World War II, and we've had a comment here and there on the channel about the Murmansk run, the run to Russia in World War II, where you had the Luftwaffe actually had air cover in that area, so it was very dangerous. And then you would unload in Murmansk, and by the time you saw the planes coming into the harbor to attack, it was already too late. So
it had to be a little bit unsatisfying too, because you knew that you were helping somebody that you didn't really embrace as an ally. The whole of it.
I don't know if that was the regular sailors, if they even had I don't know if they would have thought it that way. I mean, they may have, but I don't know.
Correctly. The Murmansk run was also at one point had Christopher Hitchens' father on the route, and also the father of the disgraced historian David Irving. I think they both did that at one point or another in their careers. Very dangerous thing.
Unbelievably dangerous. Yeah. So I would say this is sort of a representative. He did do fiction once. It was Akka.
Akka. Yes. Akka. Yeah. Yes.
I think I was
with the dolphin on the cover,
yeah.
Right? I can't believe I left Tristan Jones off my list. Oh, well, my next one, my number 4, you've already seen. It's The Last Grain Race by Eric Newby. Which is it? Can we show it to them again? Is it that boxed one?
Yeah, let me get it.
I don't have any.
No, I took the box off of it because I'm reading it.
Right?
Because I'm supposed to be reading not Foundation, but as
just a fantastic book. Mark and I were talking about this guy's writing. If you've never encountered him before, you can't go wrong with anything. I think we
I can't even do that right.
By Jason Harrigan.
Yeah.
Well, I think we tentatively agreed, even though it feels a little sacrilegious when we're talking about nautical nonfiction, that his best book might be A Short Walk in the Hindu Kush.
Oh, I think so.
It is just a beautiful book, and
we also your second best one is brilliant,
right?
Like this.
Right. And we both want to recommend his anthology of travel writing, which is terrific. I guess you've already heard everything you need to hear when Mark did it, but so I'll just take the opportunity to plug the author. The author is terrific, and
he stays in print. I think he's so entertaining, and he was actually a prisoner of war in World War II, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he had quite a life. His parents must have gone crazy. I mean, they're sitting at home, World War II is breaking out, and he's on a steel-hulled bark in the Atlantic or in the Pacific, wherever he was at. He was in both. All right.
All right, you're up to 3. We're now top
I don't
3.
think anybody's going to be surprised at this one. Actually, I think I'd get some emails if I didn't have this one because I praised it so much a couple years ago when I was reading it.
Oh. Yes.
There's a guy who could really do it. Wanderer. It's by the actor Sterling Hayden. It's almost not fair to call him that because he was that, but he was also a writer. Unbelievable talent.
What is that vessel on the back?
This was the Wanderer.
Oh,
He took
ship.
off
Wow.
from California in this with his family and sailed around. But it's more than that. It's a story of a young man growing up in the Depression, a story of a survivor, very bad family situation, left New Jersey where he was born, went up to Maine, fell in love with the sea. He's not the first person to go to Maine as a young person and fall in love with the sea. And it became a refuge for him because it became an escape. And he became a great sailor. He was always involved in the Gloucester Blue Nose sailing races and was obviously caught the eye of some Hollywood executive. And he was in many, many good movies, great movies, actually. So this book is really good.
Do you think he'd be an example of that old phrase that the sea was the making of him?
Oh, yeah. The saving
There
of
is
him, for
truth to
sure.
that. There is truth to that.
Yeah, it was the saving of him. The family was that hard.
See, for me, just having the Hollywood good looks was enough. But for some people, need more than that. I understand.
I needed to see.
Mark wants to go to sea right now.
Yeah, I'd like to go to sea right now. Yeah, but that always is that way.
I wonder what they must think. Who are these two guys who hate each other? So
Well, I'll tell you what they think. They just take their finger and they hit the stop button and they're done. That's a nice thing about book 2, isn't it?
Don't you dare. But anyway, we're in our top 3s now. My number 3 is Gypsy Moth Circles the World.
Brilliant.
By Francis Chichester, which is exactly what it sounds from the title. I consider it one of the greatest nautical nonfiction works of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was considered that right from the minute that it came off the presses. It's just this weird, idiosyncratic old crank of a guy who decides to sail around the world. Well stocked with gin, well able to fish, well able to weather all kinds of climate, all by himself. Just an amazingly, enduringly thrilling book that I had to have it on my list. Originally, when I thought about it, it was one of the first ones I thought about, so it was way up in the numbers, and I had to think, no, it's in the top 3, absolutely.
Yeah, that's actually the first nautical book I ever read. It was on my parents' shelf. I think it was a book of the month club back then. Everybody had it, really, even non-nautical people. It was a very important book. He also wrote some others. He wrote some had to do with aviation. Didn't he do that
He must have made
before?
a pile off this book. Now that I think,
Oh my good, I can't imagine. But he came from money.
It was a book of the month club. It was.
He came from money though. I don't know.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh well, because he was a sir.
Well, I don't know if
I
that was
assumed he got
before
that
or
later.
after. He may have, but yeah, I don't remember.
I've been asking for them to give me a sir here. Hasn't worked. There are other titles they want to give me, but not that.
Some of them I learned when I was at sea. We'll let you guess what they are.
You're number 2.
That was a little weird.
Straight out of Murder by Death. I want to be number 1. Look more like number 2 to me. What's that mean? It's disgusting. I'll explain it later.
To me, another one of the great ones.
Could they read it? Do you need to identify?
It's Sailing Alone Around the World by Captain Joshua Slocum, a fellow from Nova Scotia, worked out of Boston. Some great stories, and he's the first man to sail single-handedly around the world. He did not do it nonstop. That was the Brit, Sir Robin Knox Johnson.
Who wrote a book that made neither one of our lists.
And that I would love to have again. I do have his seamanship book, though. That's wonderful. And he's a great guy. But as far as I know, I've never met him. I've seen interviews. He's on YouTube. This book has great stories. It's the best way to say is that there's going to be little things that stick in your head forever once you read this book. My favorite is when somebody's going to come on deck and he puts tacks everywhere. I don't know if that's true. He may have a little Tristan Jones in him. Could be, but it doesn't matter. The stories are wonderful.
Yeah,
of course, the person coming on board was barefoot. So
it's very much flashes of stories.
Yes.
It's more of that than a sustained narrative.
Yeah.
But
he was lost at sea.
Yeah.
He went out on another voyage.
Joshua Slocum has the end that all old salts hope they have.
He probably moved to Vegas and none of us know it.
He probably didn't have that end. But on paper, it looks so great that you sail off into the mist of the harbor and no one ever sees you again. That's just so awesome. My number 2 is Sailing Alone Around the World by Joshua Slocum. So not only the same book, but also the same placing on the list. This is what I predicted would happen. You've already heard the whole story. I agree. It is an absolutely brilliant book. That's the Shambhala press that you have.
I have another one that's really nice too.
I don't think I have a copy at the moment of Sailing Alone Around the World in any format.
Neither do I.
I can't spare any more space after those Folio Society Patrick O'Brien's. They're going to take up all the room I have.
Oh my God.
So now you're number 1. What's your number 1? Oh my! An absolute classic. Where did you find that? How do you find these things up here in Vermont?
I didn't find this in Vermont.
Oh, look.
You sent this.
Oh, did I? Okay. All right. Well.
You don't even remember, do you? This is a work of genius. A lifetime undertaking. This isn't his only book, but it's
wow.
It is the book.
The American Clipper Ship.
Yeah,
the flourishing of an age.
So whoever bought this originally, they made a note, bought from the International Oceanographic Foundation, December 1984. This is a reprint, and it is absolutely Naval Institution. Yeah, Sea Witch. Oh. This is Naval Institute Press out of Annapolis, Maryland.
Look at that. Incredible.
And the detail, a lifetime of work. Am I right in saying that he had something to do with Cutler had something to do with the creation of Mystic Seaport?
I think so, yeah.
I'd have to double check on that. Please
guy.
Don't yell at me in the notes if I'm wrong. It's just the nature of these conversations. Sometimes I'll throw out something. Let me see.
He was your go-to guy.
He took a year to sail Cape Horn to New Zealand. So there you go. And the Queens of the Western Ocean is the other one I do have. It's just fantastic. And he helped the establishment and growth of Mystic Seaport Museum as a living museum. And he was just an amazing fella. And this book is just, if you're a nerd on this sort of stuff, I think even if you're not, an American
there are lots
history
of stories in the book as well as raw information. There are lots of stories that will carry you right along. Incredible. Yeah.
So that's my number 1. In this case, I didn't put anything in order, but I do believe I did put this one in order.
I put my number 1 in order as well.
Yeah. If it's this one, I'm going to just...
We talk about Spain or England or Holland as great nautical centers, but of course they all pale beside the greatest nautical center of all time, the greatest nautical city of all time, and also, while we're at it, the greatest city of all time, and that city, of course, is Boston.
Oh, I thought it was Poughkeepsie.
So my number 1 is 2 Years Before the Mast by Richard Henry Dana, which is talk about selling like hotcakes. It made him a pile of money. Came from Boston blue blood and decided that he wanted to ship out. The same thing as half the guys on this list. Wanted to see what the sea would make of him. So he decided to ship out, and I don't know if it made him tougher or more resilient, but it made him a lot of money. He didn't make any money being just a hand before the mast, but he sold a lot of copies of this book and also went around the horn as his de rigueur for all of these people on the list. So 2 Years Before the Mast gets my list for number 1. I only wish that I had, once upon a time, I had a lovely illustrated copy of it, a beautiful ship on the cover, and I don't have any copies of the book at all. Right,
there was a book a couple years ago called The Slavish Shore that talks about him, but about his work in abolition and his work in the speaking at the Supreme Court. He was a very interesting guy with very strong beliefs.
Yeah, if you talk to him later on in his life, I mean, the house in Boston, the house on the shore in Nahant, they were all paid for by 2 Years Before the Mast. But if you talk to him later on in his
life work was different.
He would say, yeah, no, my major achievements, it's way down on the list. It's way down on the list. I've done many more important things. But I couldn't make a list like that and leave him off. So
I didn't even think of him.
So there you go. That is another dueling top 10 list. This was nautical nonfiction. And the minute we started doing this, we started thinking about all sorts of other things that we could do. But it occurred to me while we were making this video that we should also ask you, what dueling top 10 lists would you see? No guarantees. We have a lot of subjects that we could cover, though.
Right. And I'd like to also say that this was inspired by a channel, Sean D. So we thank you for that. Enjoy your videos very much.
We're going to do our bit to drag him kicking and screaming to 1,000 subscribers, even though I legitimately
He
doesn't
probably
care.
doesn't care.
It doesn't matter. You should all go and swarm on his channel.
We may get a phone call saying I'm coming to get you.
Phone call.
Oh,
All
yeah.
sorts of nautical jargon.
Yeah, but ones we've all heard before that we can't put on the channel.
But we'll make other of these lists. It'll be very easy to do because I'll be right here.
I'm going to sleep for a week. Oh, just the wine alone, we have to bring in barrels. But if you want to send Steve something, send him cheese.
Oh.
That was cruel.
I have been under the unblinking gaze of one of this house's cats the whole time in this video. Just nonstop staring at me. What are you doing here? Why are you? What are you doing here?
And we'll have to explain it to the cat once he leaves.
But we're going to have our tech assistant. We have your tech intern.
Excuse me, you want me to die?
We'll have our tech assistant brush this up. She'll remove the unsavory part of the video. And we'll upload it. Hope you enjoy. You can count on more of these. Is that right? I don't want to speak for you. You're a busier guy than I am, but this is too much fun.
No, we'll do it.
I mean, we had not one but two choices that were not only the same in title, but the same in placement.
Yeah.
It was bound to happen.
Now I got to go put all these on the shelf again.
You got to go into the meat locker out there.
Oh.
His front room. The point that he made yesterday about that front room, I had a couple of people emailing me with questions about it, wondering, is it good for the books to be out there?
It was dry.
I want to remind you, he's the library director.
The books are fine.
Wouldn't have 2,000 books in a little room if it was harmful for them. But it's harmful for you. You'll freeze your giblets off out there.
Yep.
I'll take care of the wine while you're gone.
Thanks.
Oh, it's not touchscreen.
We're here forever.
But you'll be able to